Hello, friends. I want to start by saying this: if you're feeling lost, you're not alone. Maybe you've hit a point in your life where you don't know what's next. Maybe the dreams you once had don't fit anymore. Or maybe, you just feel stuck. And in a world that celebrates certainty and control, feeling lost can feel like failure. But I want to tell you something important: it's not. Feeling lost isn't the end of your story, it's part of it. It's an invitation. An opportunity to get curious, to lean into discomfort, and to find what truly matters to. We live in a culture that tells us to have it all figured out. But the truth is, none of us do. The moments when we feel lost are the moments when we are most open to learning, growing, and discovering what we actually need. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's courage. It's about showing up even when we don't have all the answers. When we're lost, our first instinct is often self-criticism. Why don't I know what to do? Why am I like this? But self-judgment doesn't bring clarity. Self-compassion does. Talking to yourself like you would a dear friend, kindly, patiently, and with encouragement, creates the space for growth. Instead of saying, "I should have it figured out," try saying, "I am learning, and that's enough." When we feel lost, we often think we have to figure it out alone. But the truth is, we need each other. Clarity doesn't always come from sitting alone and thinking harder. It comes from real conversations, from listening to different perspectives, from allowing ourselves to be seen. Whether it's a mentor, a friend, or a therapist, having someone walk with us through uncertainty makes the path clearer. Here's the truth: life is not about perfection, it's about participation. We don't need to have all the answers to move forward, we just need to take the next right step. Feeling lost isn't a problem to be solved, it's a sign that something new is beginning. And the way we move through it is with curiosity, courage, and a whole lot of self-compassion. So, if you're feeling lost right now, know this: you are not broken. You are becoming. Lean into the uncertainty, trust yourself, and take that next small step. Because even when you can't see the whole path, you are still on your way. Closing thoughts. Life isn't about always knowing where you're going. It's about having the courage to keep moving, even when the road is unclear. So if you're feeling lost, you are exactly where you need to be, because it's in the unknown that we grow, evolve, and find what we're truly meant for. Embracing vulnerability is one of the most misunderstood yet powerful aspects of personal growth. We live in a world that often equates vulnerability with weakness, with an inability to hold things together, to be strong, to be in control. But if we take a step back and truly examine what it means to be vulnerable, we begin to see that it is actually the foundation of courage, authenticity, and connection. Vulnerability is not about being weak, it's about being brave enough to show up as we are, even when we don't have all the answers, even when we feel lost. When we experience moments of uncertainty, when we feel like we are drifting without direction, our instinct is often to hide. We armor up. We tell ourselves that we need to figure it out on our own, that we can't let anyone see us struggle. But here's the truth: real strength is found in the willingness to be seen, to acknowledge our fears and doubts, and to trust that even in the midst of uncertainty, we are still worthy of love, belonging, and purpose. Vulnerability is not about oversharing or seeking validation, it's about recognizing that being human means facing moments of struggle and allowing ourselves the grace to navigate them with honesty. The reason vulnerability feels so difficult is that it requires us to let go of control. And for many of us, control is our comfort zone. We want certainty, we want guarantees, we want to know that everything will turn out okay. But life doesn't work that way. The reality is, none of us are in complete control, and none of us have it all figured out. That's what makes life both terrifying and beautiful. If we spend all of our energy trying to avoid discomfort, trying to always appear strong and put together, we miss out on the depth of real growth and connection. Think about the moments in your life when you felt the most alive, the most connected to yourself and to others. Were they the moments when you were perfectly in control, with every detail of your life neatly planned out? Or were they the moments when you took a risk, when you allowed yourself to be seen, when you stepped into the unknown despite your fear? The most meaningful experiences in life, falling in love, pursuing a passion, creating something new, making deep connections, are all built on vulnerability. You cannot have true belonging without allowing yourself to be fully known. You cannot have courage without first embracing the fear that comes with it. When we deny ourselves vulnerability, we also deny ourselves the opportunity to grow. Feeling lost is not a sign of failure, it is an invitation to pause, reflect, and ask ourselves deeper questions. What do I truly want? What is holding me back? Am I living in alignment with my values, or am I just following a path that feels safe? These questions are not easy to answer, but they can only be explored when we allow ourselves to be honest, to drop the facade of having it all together, and to lean into the discomfort of uncertainty. One of the biggest barriers to vulnerability is the fear of judgment, both from ourselves and from others. We tell ourselves stories about how we should be further along in life, about how others seem to have it all figured out while we are stuck in confusion. But the truth is, everyone struggles, everyone has moments of doubt, everyone experiences seasons of feeling lost. The difference is that some people choose to acknowledge it and work through it, while others try to hide from it. The more we open up about our struggles, the more we realize we are not alone. And in that realization, there is power. Self-compassion is a crucial part of embracing vulnerability. Often, when we feel lost, we turn to self-criticism. We tell ourselves that we should know better, that we should be stronger, that we are failing in some way. But growth does not come from self-punishment, it comes from self-acceptance. Speaking to ourselves with kindness, allowing ourselves to be a work in progress, and recognizing that uncertainty is part of the journey, these are the things that allow us to move forward. Vulnerability is not just about being open with others, it is also about being open with ourselves, about acknowledging our fears and struggles without judgment. Another powerful aspect of vulnerability is that it allows us to connect with others in a deeper and more meaningful way. We often assume that people will only accept us if we show them our strongest, most put-together version. But in reality, people are drawn to authenticity. When we allow ourselves to be real, when we admit that we don't have it all figured out, when we share our fears and dreams and uncertainties, we give others permission to do the same. And that is where true connection happens. We all want to feel seen and understood, and that only happens when we are willing to show up as we truly are. Embracing vulnerability also means being open to the possibility of failure, rejection, and disappointment. This is where courage comes in. Choosing vulnerability does not mean that things will always go our way. It does not mean that we won't face setbacks or heartache. But it does mean that we are living fully, that we are taking risks instead of staying stuck in fear, that we are showing up for our own lives instead of hiding from them. The alternative to vulnerability is stagnation. If we never allow ourselves to be uncomfortable, we also never allow ourselves to grow. When we feel lost, the natural reaction is to seek immediate answers, to want a clear roadmap to the next step. But sometimes, the best thing we can do is allow ourselves to sit in the discomfort, to embrace the uncertainty rather than run from it. Because feeling lost is not the end of the journey, it is the beginning of something new. It is a signal that we are on the verge of growth, that something within us is shifting, that we are being called to a deeper level of self-awareness and authenticity. The key is to lean into that feeling rather than resist it. We often think of vulnerability as a risk, but the greater risk is living a life where we are too afraid to be seen, too afraid to take chances, too afraid to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers. Strength is not about having it all figured out, it is about having the courage to admit when we don't. It is about showing up, even when we are scared. It is about giving ourselves permission to be human. So if you are feeling lost, if you are struggling with uncertainty, if you are questioning what comes next, know this: you are not failing, you are growing. You do not have to have all the answers. You do not have to pretend to be okay when you're not. You just have to be willing to take the next small step, to reach out for support, to be kind to yourself in the process. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it is the key to living a full, meaningful, and authentic life. The power of self-compassion is one of the most transformative forces in our lives, yet it is often the one we struggle with the most. In a world that constantly demands more from us, that tells us we must always be achieving, improving, and proving our worth, self-compassion can feel like a foreign concept. We are conditioned to believe that being hard on ourselves is necessary for success, that self-criticism is the driving force behind growth. But in reality, the way we speak to ourselves has more power than we realize. Self-compassion is not about letting ourselves off the hook or avoiding responsibility. It is about recognizing that we are human, that we will make mistakes, that we will have moments of struggle, and that we deserve kindness rather than harshness in those moments. When we feel lost, when we don't have the answers, when we are struggling with uncertainty, our first instinct is often self-judgment. We ask ourselves why we are not further along, why we are not stronger, why we are not doing better. We compare ourselves to others who seem to have it all figured out, and we convince ourselves that we are failing in some way. But this kind of self-criticism does not lead to progress, it leads to paralysis. When we judge ourselves harshly, we create fear, doubt, and shame, which only push us deeper into a sense of helplessness. On the other hand, when we practice self-compassion, we create space for growth, healing, and resilience. Self-compassion is about treating ourselves with the same kindness, patience, and understanding that we would offer to a close friend. If someone we love were struggling, we wouldn't tell them they were worthless, that they should have it all figured out, that they are failing. We would reassure them that they are doing their best, that they are allowed to struggle, that they are worthy even in their moments of uncertainty. Yet, when it comes to ourselves, we often fail to offer the same grace. We set impossibly high standards, and when we fall short, we punish ourselves rather than offering the support we need to move forward. One of the biggest misconceptions about self-compassion is that it is a form of weakness, that it means making excuses or avoiding responsibility. But research shows that the opposite is true. People who practice self-compassion are not only more resilient in the face of challenges, but they are also more motivated to improve. When we acknowledge our struggles with kindness rather than shame, we are more likely to take positive action. Shame keeps us stuck, but self-compassion helps us grow. When we recognize that our worth is not dependent on perfection, we become more willing to take risks, to learn from our mistakes, and to keep moving forward. Self-compassion is especially important when we feel lost. In times of uncertainty, we tend to crave clarity, to want immediate solutions, to feel pressure to figure everything out. But life does not always work that way. Some seasons of life require us to sit in the discomfort of not knowing, to trust that clarity will come with time. In these moments, self-compassion allows us to be patient with ourselves. It reminds us that it is okay to not have all the answers, that our worth is not measured by our level of certainty, that we are still whole even when we feel unsure. Instead of asking, "What is wrong with me?" we can ask, "How can I support myself through this?" One of the most powerful aspects of self-compassion is that it allows us to break free from the cycle of self-doubt and fear. When we believe that our struggles make us unworthy, we shrink ourselves. We hesitate to take chances, to pursue our dreams, to embrace new opportunities because we are afraid of failing. But self-compassion reminds us that failure is not a reflection of our worth, it is simply a part of being human. Every successful person, every fulfilled person, every person who has ever accomplished anything meaningful has faced moments of doubt and failure. The difference is that they did not allow those moments to define them. They showed themselves kindness, they learned from their experiences, and they kept going. Self-compassion also strengthens our relationships. When we are hard on ourselves, we tend to project that same harshness onto others. We may struggle with comparison, resentment, or unrealistic expectations of those around us. But when we practice self-compassion, we cultivate a deeper sense of empathy not just for ourselves, but for others as well. We begin to understand that everyone is on their own journey, that everyone faces struggles, that no one has it all figured out. This understanding allows us to connect with others in a more authentic and meaningful way, to build relationships based on mutual kindness and support rather than judgment and competition. Another important aspect of self-compassion is learning to recognize and challenge our inner critic. Many of us have an internal voice that constantly tells us we are not enough, that we are failing, that we should be doing more. This voice is often shaped by past experiences, by societal expectations, by messages we have absorbed over time. But just because this voice is loud does not mean it is true. We have the power to challenge these thoughts, to reframe them, to choose a different narrative. Instead of telling ourselves, "I am not good enough," we can say, "I am doing my best, and that is enough." Instead of saying, "I should have it all figured out," we can say, "I am learning and growing, and that is valuable." The way we speak to ourselves matters. Our words shape our reality, and when we choose kindness over criticism, we create a foundation for confidence and resilience. Self-compassion also allows us to set healthier boundaries. When we lack self-compassion, we may feel the need to overextend ourselves, to constantly prove our worth by doing more, by meeting everyone else's expectations. But when we recognize that we are already enough, we become more comfortable with saying no, with prioritizing our well-being, with making choices that align with our needs rather than seeking validation from others. Self-compassion is not just about how we think, it is about how we live. It is about choosing to honor ourselves in the same way we honor others, to recognize that our needs and emotions are just as important as those of the people around us. At the heart of self-compassion is the understanding that we are all human. We will have good days and bad days. We will experience moments of confidence and moments of doubt. We will succeed, and we will fail. And through it all, we remain worthy. We do not have to earn self-compassion, it is something we deserve simply because we exist. The journey of self-compassion is not about achieving perfection, it is about learning to be kinder to ourselves along the way. So if you are feeling lost, if you are struggling with self-doubt, if you are questioning your worth, remember this: you are enough, exactly as you are. You do not need to have all the answers. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to show up for yourself with the same kindness and patience that you would offer to someone you love. The path forward may not always be clear, but when we walk it with self-compassion, we walk it with strength. And that is what truly matters. Finding clarity through connection is one of the most powerful yet often overlooked aspects of navigating life's uncertainties. When we feel lost, our instinct is often to retreat inward, to isolate ourselves, and to believe that we must figure everything out on our own. We convince ourselves that no one else will understand, that our struggles are ours to bear alone, that reaching out for support is a sign of weakness. But the truth is, clarity does not come from isolation, it comes from connection. It is through our relationships, through meaningful conversations, through sharing our fears and uncertainties with others, that we begin to see the path ahead more clearly. One of the greatest misconceptions we have is that clarity must come from within, that we must solve all of our problems by thinking harder, by analyzing more, by sitting alone and forcing ourselves to find an answer. But clarity is not something that always appears in solitude. Sometimes, it emerges in the presence of others, in the exchange of ideas, in the reflection we see when someone listens to us with understanding. Connection provides us with perspective when we are too close to a situation, too wrapped up in our own fears and doubts, we often cannot see the bigger picture. But when we open ourselves up to others, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and share what we are going through, we invite new insights, fresh viewpoints, and guidance that we may not have found on our own. There is a reason why some of our deepest moments of clarity come from conversations with trusted friends, mentors, or even strangers who happen to say exactly what we need to hear at the right time. These moments remind us that we do not have to carry everything alone, that wisdom does not exist in a vacuum, and that sometimes, the answers we seek are already within us, they just need to be drawn out through connection. When we speak our thoughts aloud, when we articulate what we are feeling, we often begin to make sense of things in a way we couldn't when they were just swirling inside our minds. The very act of putting words to our confusion can bring clarity. But connection is not just about receiving advice or guidance, it is also about feeling seen, feeling understood, feeling validated in our experience. When we are lost, one of the most painful feelings is the belief that no one else understands what we are going through. We feel disconnected, as if we are the only ones struggling, as if everyone else has it figured out while we are left wandering without direction. But when we open up to others, we often realize that we are not alone at all. Everyone, at some point in their life, has felt lost. Everyone has faced moments of uncertainty, of self-doubt, of questioning their path. And when we connect with people who have been through similar experiences, when we hear their stories and struggles, we begin to feel less isolated. We realize that what we are going through is part of the human experience, not a personal failure. Connection also provides us with a mirror, reflecting back to us the things we cannot always see in ourselves. When we doubt our worth, when we feel incapable or unworthy, the right people in our lives remind us of our strengths, our resilience, our value. They help us see what we might be overlooking, the qualities we bring to the world, the progress we have already made, the potential that still lies ahead. Sometimes, we need someone else to believe in us before we can fully believe in ourselves. The support of others gives us the courage to take steps forward, even when we are uncertain of where the path will lead. It is important to recognize that finding clarity through connection does not mean that every conversation will provide instant answers or that every person we talk to will have the wisdom we seek. True connection is not just about collecting advice, it is about engaging in meaningful relationships that help us grow. It is about surrounding ourselves with people who encourage us to ask deeper questions, who challenge us to see things from a different perspective, who create a safe space for us to explore our uncertainties without fear of judgment. These connections do not necessarily have to come from people who have all the answers, but rather from those who are willing to listen, to reflect, to offer their presence and support. Sometimes, we hesitate to reach out because we are afraid of being a burden. We tell ourselves that we should be able to handle things on our own, that asking for help is a sign of weakness. But what we fail to realize is that connection is not a one-way street, it is a shared experience. Just as we find clarity and comfort in the presence of others, others find meaning and fulfillment in being there for us. Human connection is built on reciprocity, on the mutual exchange of support, on the understanding that we are all walking this journey together. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, when we share our struggles, we not only help ourselves, we also deepen our relationships, allowing others to do the same when they need support. Another way that connection brings clarity is through shared experiences. When we expose ourselves to different perspectives, different environments, different stories, we begin to see beyond our immediate circumstances. Engaging in meaningful conversations, reading books that expand our minds, traveling to new places, engaging in communities that inspire us, all of these experiences widen our perspective and help us see possibilities we may not have considered before. Sometimes, clarity does not come from thinking more, it comes from experiencing more. It comes from stepping outside of our comfort zones, from engaging with the world in a way that sparks new insights and realizations. It is also worth noting that connection does not always have to come from deep, long conversations or life-changing advice. Sometimes, it is found in small, everyday moments: a kind word from a stranger, a shared laugh with a colleague, a brief but meaningful conversation that reminds us we are not alone. These moments of connection, however small, can serve as reminders that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. They remind us that even when we feel lost, we are still connected to the world around us, and that support can come from unexpected places. Ultimately, finding clarity through connection is about embracing the truth that we do not have to navigate life alone. It is about recognizing that wisdom, guidance, and reassurance are often found in our relationships. It is about allowing ourselves to be seen, to be supported, to be reminded that our struggles do not define us. It is about understanding that while we may not always have immediate answers, we can find strength in the presence of others. So if you are feeling lost, if you are struggling to find your way, do not withdraw, reach out. Talk to someone you trust. Engage in conversations that challenge and inspire you. Surround yourself with people who lift you up, who remind you of your worth, who help you see what you may have forgotten about yourself. Seek out experiences that expand your perspective, that expose you to new ideas, that remind you of the infinite possibilities that exist beyond your current uncertainty. And most importantly, remember that you are not alone. Clarity does not always come in solitude, it comes in connection, in shared experiences, in the simple yet profound truth that we are all in this together. The strength of imperfection is one of the most liberating truths we can embrace, yet it is often the hardest to accept. We live in a world that glorifies perfection, that tells us we must always strive to be flawless, that mistakes are failures rather than stepping stones. From a young age, we are conditioned to believe that success means getting everything right, that our worth is tied to our achievements, and that if we fall short, we are not enough. But the reality is, perfection is an illusion. No one has ever achieved it, and no one ever will. The most successful, the most fulfilled, the most courageous people are not those who avoid mistakes but those who learn to find strength in imperfection. Imperfection is not weakness, it is humanity. It is what makes us real, relatable, and capable of growth. If we were perfect, there would be no room for learning, no space for creativity, no reason for resilience. It is through our imperfections that we discover who we truly are. Our struggles shape us, our failures teach us, and our flaws make us unique. When we try to be perfect, we deny ourselves the opportunity to grow. We become so afraid of making mistakes that we stop taking risks, we avoid challenges, and we shrink ourselves into a version of who we think we are supposed to be rather than embracing who we truly are. The truth is, the pressure to be perfect is exhausting. It keeps us trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and fear. We hesitate to try new things because we are afraid of not being good enough. We avoid speaking up because we fear judgment. We push ourselves to impossible standards and then feel defeated when we inevitably fall short. But what if we stopped seeing imperfection as something to fix and started seeing it as something to embrace? What if we allowed ourselves to be human? When we accept our imperfections, we open the door to self-compassion. We begin to understand that making mistakes does not mean we are failures, it means we are learning. That struggling does not mean we are weak, it means we are growing. That not knowing all the answers does not mean we are lost, it means we are still exploring. Self-compassion allows us to give ourselves the grace that we so freely offer to others. We would never look at a friend who is struggling and say, "You are not enough," yet we tell ourselves this all the time. We hold ourselves to standards that we would never expect from anyone else, and in doing so, we rob ourselves of the joy and freedom that come with simply being who we are. There is incredible strength in vulnerability, in showing up as our authentic selves, flaws and all. When we let go of the need to be perfect, we give ourselves permission to take risks, to chase our dreams, to embrace opportunities without the fear of failure holding us back. Some of the greatest achievements in history were born out of mistakes, out of failures that led to breakthroughs, out of people who were willing to try, to stumble, and to try again. If they had waited for perfection, they would have never even begun. Imperfection is also what connects us to others. We often believe that if people saw our flaws, they would judge us, that if we revealed our struggles, we would be rejected. But in reality, it is our imperfections that make us relatable. No one connects with perfection because perfection is not real. We connect through shared struggles, through honesty, through the courage to say, "Me too. I've been there." When we are honest about our imperfections, we give others permission to do the same. We create spaces where people feel safe to be themselves, where they don't have to pretend, where they can show up as they are and know that they are enough. The fear of imperfection often comes from the belief that we must prove our worth. But worth is not something that has to be earned. We do not become worthy when we achieve a certain goal, when we reach a certain level of success, when we finally meet the impossible standards we have set for ourselves. We are worthy simply because we exist. Our value does not come from being perfect, it comes from being real, from being kind, from being present, from being willing to grow. Embracing imperfection also means embracing uncertainty. Life is unpredictable, and no matter how much we try to plan, control, or perfect every detail, there will always be things that do not go as expected. But imperfection is what makes life beautiful. The best moments are often the unplanned ones, the detours that lead us somewhere unexpected, the mistakes that turn into opportunities. When we stop resisting imperfection, we begin to see life as an adventure rather than a test we are constantly trying to pass. One of the greatest acts of courage is to show up fully, knowing we are not perfect but choosing to be present anyway. To speak even when our voice shakes. To try even when we might fail. To love ourselves even when we don't feel like we are enough. Strength is not in pretending to have it all together, it is in being honest about the fact that we don't, and choosing to move forward anyway. Letting go of perfection does not mean giving up on growth or settling for mediocrity. It means recognizing that growth comes through the process, not the outcome. It means understanding that progress is more important than perfection. It means knowing that every mistake, every misstep, every moment of struggle is part of the journey. When we stop seeing imperfection as something to fear and start seeing it as a source of strength, we free ourselves. We allow ourselves to dream bigger, to take chances, to embrace new opportunities without the paralyzing fear of failing. So, if you are struggling with imperfection, if you feel like you are not enough, if you are waiting for the day when you finally have it all figured out, hear this: you do not have to be perfect to be worthy. You do not have to have all the answers to be on the right path. You do not have to prove yourself to deserve love, acceptance, and belonging. Your imperfections are not weaknesses, they are part of what makes you strong. They are what make you real, what make you resilient, what make you you. Perfection is not the goal, growth is. Showing up is. Trying again is. Being kind to yourself is. Living fully, unapologetically, and embracing the messy, beautiful, imperfect journey of life is. Because in the end, it is not perfection that makes us strong, it is the courage to be imperfect and to keep going anyway. It sounds like you're wrapping up a speech or video. If you're looking for a polished closing line for your channel, here's a suggestion. Thank you all for your support. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next one. Let me know if you'd like me to tweak it for your style. Rocket Movie Camera.